Good evening. I'd like to call Independent School District 721 to order. Janelle, please note that all board members are present except Jean. Let's stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We do not have an open forum request tonight, so we can skip over that item. Next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda, so I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
And first and second, those in favor signify by saying aye.
I've got an item on this one today. I'm not sure if this is the right place to do it. I sent a notice about policy 413 and 413F earlier today to pull it out of the consent agenda. Last time I saw that, it wasn't out. And
Correct.
so
Correct.
I would be objecting to that portion of the consent agenda and would like it moved to the regular place, or to the regular discussion portion.
I made the decision earlier today regarding that to leave it in the consent agenda.
You don't have the ability to do that. Any member of the board can object to any item on the consent agenda and not allow it to pass through there and force discussion on it.
All right, let's pull it out. I'm fine with that. All right, so the agenda, we voted, so.
Wait, point of order.
Yep,
Did you make a motion to have that happen?
So earlier I said I wanted them pulled out of the consent agenda, and so it doesn't appear that they have been yet, and so I'm not quite sure of how that happens, but they need to be out of the consent agenda because they can't pass if any member objects. So I'm objecting to those two items being included in the consent agenda.
There's a motion on the floor and a second to pass it.
the agenda. That was an agenda. So,
We did the agenda, we didn't even get to the consent agenda yet.
correct.
Yeah, we haven't, that wasn't even,
Sorry about that.
no, I'm just saying.
So point of order, would the objection be appropriate at the consent agenda portion? Is that where you would like to see the
Yes,
objection?
yeah.
All right,
Separate,
perfect.
that's a separate
Yeah.
item.
All right.
So,
Didn't want to miss my only chance of the meeting. That was my.
okay, so we'll vote again. So signify by saying aye for the approval of the agenda.
Aye.
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 Motion carries. All right, consent agenda is the next item on the agenda. We're going to pull out 413 and 413F of the policies, and we'll move that down to the board committee reports. And so now, removing that from the consent agenda, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
First and seconded, those signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those approved, the motion carries. All right, so board committee report. So we'll go to the policy committee first off.
Okay, the current list of policies that have been reviewed by administration and directors is just changing, very minor changes, spelling out wording, and minimal MSBA changes.
Okay. Any questions or comments regarding the items on for first reading?
So I've got some questions on 522, the Title IX policy. And so is the decision maker in our district a predetermined portion, or does it come up on a case-by-case basis when we're adjudicating items that fall under policy 522?
Andy, would you assist?
So Title IX requires that we have 4 different positions, and those are determined in advance. So the decision maker, the taker of the information, the investigator, and then an appeal person. So those, I don't know if they're in the policy or not. I don't know. They're listed on our website under the Title IX.
Okay, I did not see any names in the policy itself. So who is the decision maker in the district then?
Mr. Boothie.
Boothie, all right. And then in section 3A1, it talks about supportive measures that are not owed in parity. Can you give me an idea of what the supportive measures are that are owed to both the complainant and the respondent?
Yeah, I mean, there could be could be a lot of things, but let's say that a student isn't comfortable, being in the same building or something, we might do like an internal, what are those called? What are those called, Nicole? When, yes, a no contact, that is a possibility. It could be changing classes for somebody, so they're in a different class. It could be providing some home instruction. It really depends on the situation.
So it would be nothing related to how the actual case is being adjudicated?
No.
It would just be other types of remedial items that you're doing in the meantime?
Yes.
And then my last question on this policy is it had a in section D, it talks about confidentiality, and it was unclear to me in the policy of whether it's possible for a complaint to be filed confidentially or not. That goes through this process and procedure. Does it have to, if that makes
Not
sense?
confidential.
So it's not a confidential
No.
complaint? All right, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Anybody else?
Can I just talk about the difference between the harassment violence policy and the bullying policy? I wish I had my numbers here, but I don't, sorry. In the harassment and violence policy, the complainant, the person who brings the allegation, brings it to what's called the building reporter, and that building reporter must automatically notify the school district human rights officer immediately without screening or investigating the report. That's harassment and violence policy for protected classes. If it's a bullying incident, then that doesn't get a notification to the district human rights officer. Am I right? That makes sense? Okay. First of all, the human rights officer, it goes on to say the human rights officer is the the director of business and human services, which is you, Sandy. That makes sense. When I went to look on the website to see human rights officer, when I went to do a search on that, nothing came back. And part of the policy says it has to be conspicuously posted, and the name of the human rights officer has to be there someplace. So have somebody link that for me, would you? Does that make sense? Yeah. Because I just did a search and I couldn't find it. I mean, I knew it was you, but I didn't. Maybe other people won't. The only other thing I have about that is that it has to be reported to you, Sandy, as the human rights officer. Who makes the decision whether it belongs to a protected class violation or just a general bullying violation? Is that the person who's making the complaint, or is that the building reporter? Mm-hmm. Okay, the policy says the building reporter, report taker must notify the school district human rights officer immediately without screening or investigating anything. So that has to come to you immediately, and I think it says within 24 hours, but it says before any investigation is done. So do we automatically err on the side of caution? Mm-hmm. Whether it gets filed. Okay, good. Thanks.
Okay. Anybody else regarding that policy? Okay. All right, moving on. Southwest Metro.
Well, so is that we were talking about the portion of the policies that were on first read? Are we headed to
No, that
second
was
read?
fourth. That was 413.
All right, just 413. All right. So if we're going to Southwest Metro, does that mean we're moving off the policy?
Yes, that's what. Yeah. Do you want something else on the policy?
Well, yeah, I thought we were talking about the first reads. So I
Oh,
would go-
sorry. We
yeah.
had switched over to 413, which is the second.
Okay, so
The one that we had pulled.
All right, so as far as 413 goes, as we look at harassment goes, I have a similar concern with our bullying policy that we're processing the first read on. And one question I had that I asked the policy committee during the last couple of weeks through email comes down to what is deemed harassment and not harassment on otherwise allowable language. Like, for example, is a student allowed to discuss at lunch with their friends how it makes them uncomfortable to have students of the opposite sex in the restrooms with them? In some readings of this policy, that could be deemed harassment, and others not. You know, and I'm trying to get a clear understanding of what level of language that is not directed at anybody or things like that, that is just statements of personal belief and things like that would fall outside our harassment policy that could result in sanctions against the student.
I'm going to throw out my opinion. My opinion is if it's done loudly enough for somebody else to hear it besides within the conversation, then I would say perhaps it should be looked at. If you're sitting on a table with all like-minded people and you're having that conversation, I don't think the conversation in and of itself would violate the policy. But if you're speaking loudly enough for someone else to hear it and feel harassed by it, then I think it at least should be looked at. That's my opinion.
What are your thoughts on it, Dan?
So the policies are written in a way that it always gives a presumption to the person who is offended by the statement, and our policies generally don't give any protections of what are the lawful bounds of things that you can say, and oftentimes they conflict with each other, right? If you have a feeling that's deeply held belief, saying that it's not allowable here, but is you can whisper it perhaps if no one else can hear you, just solely based upon the receiver's perception of that. I have some issues with saying that that's outside of bounds, right? And so I think targeting someone, harassing individuals and things like that, but having a conversation about your belief system at the lunch table, I think it's very dangerous. If you investigate, at the end of the day, you shut down that speech just by nature of triggering an investigation, I believe.
But I think that's why, that's why life is gray. I mean, because if I'm intentionally saying it loud enough, and I know there's a person, within earshot of me, and it's really my intent to have my voice be heard by that person, that's why it needs to be looked at, because it might be a situation where I'm trying to offend that person because I'm saying it loudly enough to try to offend another person and cause that person pain, right? So, but then there's instances where I might be talking with a friend one-on-one about something and it's never heard by anybody else because that was my intent to make sure no one else heard that conversation. So, I don't know.
How would you establish a conversation at a table the intent to hurt someone else?
Because what I'm saying is maybe offensive to. I mean, life is not like black and white. I mean, we understand as we go through life, we say things sometimes that offend other people that we know we may offend someone or cause someone pain, but we say it anyways, right?
Or you don't know.
Or your intentions are not there. That's why we have to look into it and say, okay, was this intent to cause harm to someone else? If not, all right, we're going to chop it out. We're not going to investigate it any further. I mean, I think if we could, in these policies, lay out every last scenario that life might throw at us, it would be a never-ending project. But we're never going to get there. We have to leave it open-ended so we can actually give our leaders an opportunity to address these issues.
Open-ended, but you have to look at the intent of the person that was making the comment, or what purpose was that comment for? And I think you covered it when you said, was it there to cause mental harm to the person? Was it there to put them down, whatever have you? I think, and that's a nebulous thing. What is the intent of the person doing it? But also, you look at the receiver, and how does that person take that comment as well? That's another facet of it as well. So there are two sides to it. It's the intent of the person making the comment, and also how is that comment received by the person that it was directed at. It's a nebulous thing, like you say, and that's why lawyers get involved with cases like this.
I could just make one comment. I talked earlier about it being a high bar. Mm-hmm. So a one-time incident doesn't constitute harassment. It has to be pervasive, continuing. So it's a legal definition. So a one-time incident would then be handled as maybe a learning tool, something like that. But it can't be just one time.
I understand that, and based upon the answers that came from the board and administration, I think it's very clear that that beliefs and things like that are well within bounds of what should be acceptable to say in public about your beliefs and what you hold. Like, I think it's very dangerous to place everything on the receiver, and I think there should be standards in our policies that help the administrators have a guideline of saying, when is it not okay to be offended about something that you disagree with? We can be offended about anything, anytime we want, and how we choose, and we have to learn to live in a society where we disagree with each other, but that we understand the bounds of what can be said, and that you can hear something that you disagree with that doesn't result in trying to shut down a discussion at a table or something like that. Within reason. And I think more clearly articulating that is fundamental in bullying. It's fundamental in the harassment policy and things like that, so we can help establish expectations that are reasonable. Because if we say that anytime your feelings are hurt, for these reasons, it passes the bar no matter what, I think that's a bad place to start. I think it's chilling to investigate it just because someone disagrees with it, and we have to look at both sides of that equation whenever we write policy. And currently, this policy and our bullying policy, in the same regard, are 100% one-sided policies.
I disagree.
They're not one-sided, Dan.
I think we have to trust our administrators that they're going to do the right thing at the time. And I get calls from principals periodically, wanting to know what, getting advice and so forth. So, I mean, principals are trying to do the right thing out there. They're not, trying to shut down speech or anything like that. They're trying to handle each situation as they occur. And you can't, if you start putting different scenarios in there, you're never going to cover them all. So I guess that's about all I have to say.
One thing you mentioned, Mark, was that it wasn't one-sided. Can you give me an example where the policy says that this is what somebody could say and they would be protected from
but
it based
Dan,
upon the feelings of the other person?
You're asking for a policy that's black and white. Policies are not black and white. There's always variables. That's the world we live in. That's what Matt referred to.
Absolutely. I'm just saying that
We cannot cover every possible criteria. That's not policy.
in our policy, we give no guidance to our administrators.
This is not just our policy. This comes from the Minnesota School Board Association. It's looked at by how many lawyers before it comes here? 20? Possibly. They know a lot more than we do about it, Dan. And if they think that they got things harnessed pretty good in the wordage here, I trust them. I don't know about the rest of the people, but I trust them.
So I think the answer that you gave me is you can't point to a place where a speaker is given guidelines of what is protected speech in our harassment policy. And when we rely upon 100% upon judgment of administrators, we have a wide variety of beliefs and moral values that are going to interpret how the policy is. And as those beliefs drift further and further apart from members of our community, I think it's useful to provide a little more guidance of what we expect from them when they adjudicate these kinds of things.
I disagree.
So do I.
I would just say that we aren't just relying on the administrators. We're also relying on MSBA to give us, they're the ones who give us the policy to begin with.
Which is based on legal precedent. like you
Right.
said.
So it's not just administration making these words up and telling us, it's lawyers. School Board Association.
All right, I think we've all had an opportunity I think everyone has had an opportunity to discuss this policy. So I would entertain a motion to approve this policy as written.
So moved.
Second?
And first and seconded, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 5-1. All right, let's look at Southwest Metro.
Are we going to do 413F, or are we going to not approve that one this week?
I guess the F is just the form that goes along with 413, so I was assuming that was part of that.
So my complaint on this one is just a technical still. We say we have a firm policy prohibiting all forms of discrimination. We still only have a policy prohibiting unlawful forms of discrimination, and we should just update the form to reflect that.
I don't understand. I'm sorry, I don't understand.
So the form says that we have a firm policy that prohibits all forms of discrimination, and we don't have a policy that does that. Our policy prohibits unlawful discrimination.
Is there lawful, I'm sorry, I'm gonna jump in again. Is there lawful discrimination?
Sure thing. For example, if you don't meet the GPA requirements, you can't get the Academic Achievement Award. That's a form of discrimination. Not everyone qualifies to play varsity sports. That's another form of lawful discrimination. And so what classes you can take and whether or not you can graduate depends upon your performance throughout the several years. And so those are all forms of discrimination that are lawful. And our policy, and in most of the places where we mention it, we talk about unlawful discrimination based upon protected class.
I'm sorry, can I jump again?
Yes, go
Is
ahead.
there, where are you getting this definition of lawful and unlawful?
So, for example,
Discrimination, if my grade point average isn't high enough, I can't get this. Where did you get that idea of discrimination being lawful or unlawful? Is that just an example that you're giving?
yeah,
me?
that's just an example.
So that's your opinion?
So the word
So
discrimination.
that's your opinion?
The word discrimination, right?
I'm
is
just asking a
treatment-
yes or no question.
Right.
Is that your opinion?
It's based upon language. Is it
That you
not?
got where?
Is it not discriminating to not let somebody on the varsity team? There's some level of discrimination.
No, I don't
that
think
goes
you have
against
the, I don't think you, I'm
I
sorry.
think that's a
keep jumping in.
privilege, it's not a discrimination. I mean, I think that's two different, I mean, we're,
that. If you try out for the team and you don't make it, and it's perfectly fine that you don't make it based upon skill and who the coach selects, but you didn't make it based upon a set of criteria that it's legal to judge by.
I disagree.
I don't call it, I would never define that as discrimination.
No, that would not be discrimination. That was based on a criteria that the student could not meet because of either performance or whatever, and they were just not able to get that position.
Would it be discrimination to hold them off the varsity team based upon religion or race?
I would like to call the question. I think we're wandering here again.
I'll second.
First and seconded. Those signify by stating aye.
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 Those opposed?
Nay.
All right. Motion carries 5-1. All right, now let's move to the Southwest Metro Intermediate
Southwest
District.
Metro had their monthly meeting last Tuesday. A highlight of the meeting was that we were given a presentation on our strategic plan, which is just about getting wrapped up as far as its process is concerned. And our strategic plan, I believe, is going to be a good one, or it is a good one. And it had been gone through step by step with the people that were working on it, and how the strategic plan came to be a reality. So we've got that taken care of. Then we also had second reading of the calendar, and making a calendar out for an organization like the Southwest Metro is a difficult thing to do because it has 11 full-time members and some adjunct members as well. And it's not an easy task to do, but we did come up with one again for the 23-24 school year, and it was approved. Then we also talked about the purchase of the East Union School District, which is owned by East Colorado River County. And
Building, you meant,
Building,
right? You
the
said
building.
school district.
We're going to
Right,
buy the
building.
school district.
It's
Woo!
owned by the East Carver County School District. And we're purchasing
Okay,
the
yeah,
building.
Gotcha. I thought you said
And
we were
it's the east,
purchasing the
it's
school
called the
district.
East Union, it's called the East Union Elementary School.
Yeah, gotcha.
And we are purchasing it for a purchase price of $1,517,000. And we are using a mental health grant that we are receiving from the state of Minnesota to make our first payment, and we will use succeeding grants that will be coming along to purchase the building. So, in other words, the state of Minnesota is actually funding that building for Southwest Metro. Yeah, it's a sweet deal. But you understand why, too, is it's going to be used for mental health for elementary age children. Right now, we're out of space in our two sites that we have currently at Southwest Metro. So this will be a welcome addition to be able to house and to work with additional students when this purchase is made. And we're on track to have it go online next school year. So it's a wonderful thing that has been occurring, and it looks like everything's going to fall into place. So really, really happy about that one. And then we have an upcoming event, and that is the Southwest Metro is sponsoring the Equity Summit. Again, it will be held in Prior Lake, and the date is June 20th. And I attended last year, and it was very worthwhile as far as my time was concerned attending this. And if you have that date of June 20th open, I would highly recommend board members to attend.
What time?
It starts at, I believe, 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock and goes for the whole day until about 5, I believe.
Is there a charge for that?
No, that's
Okay.
covered.
Okay.
Okay. And I believe that's it.
Okay, how about CPAC?
No CPAC meeting, but they did hold their author night, and it was held on the 18th of April, and I believe it was considered a very successful event.
Good. Community education,
No meeting.
okay. Legislative committee at all, Dan?
No update?
Okay. Early Childhood Coalition, that's Jean, and then Joint Powers.
We didn't have a meeting, but I would like to report that New Prague Fitness and Aquatic Center and New Prague Area Community Education are excited to introduce Joshua Withers as our new aquatics coordinator and Neptune head swim coach. He's been offered the job, he's accepted it, and the Joint Powers hasn't met yet to be able to verify that, but that's on the hot plate. So that's good. That's what I got.
Okay, good. All right, Tim.
Just give you an update. Well, one thing I want to just mention to everyone here, I know the board knows because I sent an email out this morning, but Jean Kubish, our board member here, her husband Wally passed away early this morning. So thoughts and prayers to her and her family. I just want to mention that. Pretty neat thing happened yesterday. Our high school band performed the national anthem at the Twins game. What made it unique was John Pullen, our band director, was there with his brother's band from Piers, Minnesota, Piers High School, and his dad, who's also the band director down in Loris College in Iowa. So all three bands came together. We had over 200 band members, and they did a great job, and it was really a neat thing. They all wore different shirts. They all said, or different color shirt, they all said, I play for a Poland, and then had Minnesota Twins on there. So that was neat to be at the Twins game yesterday, seeing them represented, and a lot of things going on in the fine arts right now. We had a jazz concert last week that went very well, and the spring concert, and we got coming up is the pop show, very popular pop show on Friday, May 12th, and Saturday, March 13th. And hopefully athletics get some of their games in this week. And then the other thing going on right now, we got a lot of MCA testing going on right now at the middle school and the elementary right now. That's it.
Can I add something?
Sure.
Mallory Jarek, who's a junior at the high school, finished 4th at the state speech meet in extemporaneous speaking. For those of you who don't know what extemp speaking is, oh my gosh. It's a speech category, obviously, and what the kids do is that they prepare by doing extensive research on current national and international topics so that they understand all sides of an issue. Then at meets, they are given a specific question on one of those topics. Using all of their research work, they prepare an original persuasive speech about 5 or 6 minutes, supported by verifiable facts and expert opinions from reliable sources. The contestants may only use one side of a 3x5 card to deliver their speech. Yeah. As we all know, this is an incredibly important skill to have these days, and I want to publicly congratulate Mallory on all of her work.
Great. All right, moving to our action items, the approval of the budget adjustments and reductions for staffing for 23-24 school year.
All right, just have the same format as we had during the work session, and by line item, I think we'll go over them by group, if that's okay with you. And then at the end, we'll ask for the approval based on the discussions that we have during this process. Okay, first of all, our budget reduction target was 3.1 million. We're currently at 3.02 million, so we're about $80,000 short of our goal. And what I can say is that I feel very confident that there will be other changes that take place, specifically staffing changes, where someone more senior is going to leave and we're going to hire someone less, for way less money. And I don't think that $80,000 will be hard to meet. There's also other things that are percolating. I just talked with Craig Most about something this morning that will save money to the district and allow us to use some Safe Schools funding instead of our general fund. So there are things percolating. So I want to just reassure you that I don't see this as this process is over. And I can, obviously update you when I give the preliminary budget presentation on May 22nd, I believe it is. Okay?
Yeah, regular meeting in May, yeah.
Any questions on that? So the first group is administrative. I will let, Tim, did you want to say something about the equity coordinator, or do you want me to?
No, I just want you to pull it up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Andy, do you prefer to go through everything before we ask questions, or should we pop in with questions as we go through sections?
I think a section at a time.
Okay,
Yeah, yep.
each section, okay.
Yep. So the first is the equity coordinator. I put a little star next to it. I don't know if, Tim, you want to say something about this one, or if you'd like me to go over
Start,
it.
and I'll say it
Okay.
at the end.
Okay, so the equity coordinator is currently a 1.0, and we understand that equity, the equity initiative in the district is very important, but may not be a full-time job. So Tim worked with the high school administration to, for a position that is 0.25 district-wide equity, and then doing other supports for the students at the high school and other schools, but they would be housed at the high school. How we plan to pay for that, so we're still including it as a reduction as the 1.0 equity coordinator. There was a high school counselor that is being non-renewed tonight, and we know that it's pretty certain that we're going to have some funds that has to be spent on new personnel in the district, and so we're hoping that will offset that somehow. But we don't know for sure what's going to happen, but that's our plan.
Yeah, so it's basically a cut at the district level, and then using those funds for this position at the high school level. The person will work with Tier 2 and Tier 3 intervention, amongst other things, have a caseload of kids, regular education kids, and be working mainly at the high school, but we'll still be working K-12 equity.
And do we know who, is a person already identified, or would that
Yeah,
be the new hire?
it'd be Tremaine.
Jermaine, right.
Yep, keep going.
Okay. What's in yellow is the stuff that's changed or new. So I'll go to the school resource officer. So Tim and Tony and Tom Wetchka, I believe, worked last week with Josh and Tim Applin to restructure how we're paying for the SRO. Up until now, the district has been paying 75% of that cost. And it is a high priority for the police department, the city, to have that position. So we are restructuring they've offered to restructure how that works. So the first year, we would pay just a little over $45,000 instead of the $115,000 that we've been being billed. It will go up each year and go back to 75% in year 3. They want a 5-year agreement to be able to keep that SRO position at the high school.
Yeah, and I just want to comment too on that with our city manager, Josh Tetzloff, working with the city council for that support to be able to do that, because obviously that's a lot of money, and that's why it came up to begin with. And being able to be flexible and work with us on that as we go through our financial constraints now, I really appreciate their support and work on that.
Then the .15 Assistant Activities Director, that position today is a .75 and therefore eligible for full benefits and actually required to take our health insurance. So reducing down to .6 would be, they would be eligible for a reduced level of benefits. And that's why that amount is so high for that $25,000, because there will be a significant reduction in the benefit there. Okay, any questions on items 1 through 6 then? Elementary certified, we just have the same 6.0 classroom FTEs. We took off the elementary specialists and the elementary interventionists. Middle school certified, we have the 2.0 allied, oh, I see a typo there, allied FTEs, 1.0 reading intervention, and 2.0 classroom FTEs. No change in that. High school certified, right now we're at 4.8. Our goal was 5, but we are at 4.8 right now. And so we lowered that just to 0.2.
So is there going to be a high school teacher, certified teacher who's at a 0.2?
Well, see, we
How does that
have,
work?
we have some teachers that are currently like a 0.16 and a point, so it's just.
They're on
that's-
overload or something?
No, we have a couple that, like the theater arts program, very low FTE. And then we have our construction trades class, that's a very low FTE. So that's just how the
How it
numbers
works
work out.
Okay. Thank you.
Certified leadership teams, we did, Tim worked with the principals to totally eliminate those leadership teams for 1 year. And so that savings increased. There are plans for how that work will be done. Each elementary is going to be slightly different, and the middle school will be slightly different. But they'll do what works for their building. For example, at Eagle View, Adam talked about having a committee that meets during the duty day, and they have people that are willing to do it, want to do it. That might not work at Falcon Ridge or Ravenstream, but they'll work something out where they will still be able to get input from the teachers and communicate information to them. On that. Non-certified positions, nothing has changed since the very first presentation on that. Middle school activities, again, nothing has changed. I did try to look at the late activity bus, but the majority of, hey, there. The majority of riders were actually football, and we are eliminating that. And so, we'll see how it goes. But that, is pretty expensive, and there's no way, we got some suggestions that, well, the parents will pay for all of it. There's no way they could pay for it. There's just no way, it's just too expensive. Even if they take a minibus, that's the same amount per mile than that a big bus has, and there's just no way we could pay for that, so. That. High school activities, we did add a couple of things there. We reduced one football coach, and we decreased the activity supplies by 10%. Other than that, everything is the same. Technology, no changes from the first presentation. District-wide, there are really no changes to that either. That's pretty much the same, and same with high school miscellaneous. So we're at the 3.019 million, about $80,000 short.
In the district-wide, and the Safe Schools grant that we're working on, is that thought to be a guaranteed thing that's going to come through, so we feel very confident we're going to realize those savings? Or is that something that we hope is going to come through that will help us realize some transportation savings?
Good question.
Yeah, very good question. So it opens up once a year. This year it's closed, so it opens up again in the fall. Craig has been in contact with Wold because they will need to be involved in you need engineering drawings and such if you're going to be putting in sidewalks or paths or whatever. So he's working with them already, and we hope it opens up again in the fall, and that we could make some changes and then potentially look at making changes for the next year.
And this is
But it's
something
not-
we'll be working with the city on too. I've talked to
Yeah.
Josh Tessoff, the city manager, so we'll be working in tandem with them on this. They've got experience in doing that, and it's not just the sidewalks or crosswalk, it's also the speed limit and stuff like that too, to make it safe.
But not
if-
guaranteed.
Yeah, if I hear that, it's more on the hope side,
Yep.
at this point, because we're
It
not
is.
sure if it's going to open, how much money is going to be there, and things like that. What items have transportation identified that would be more within our control fully that we might be able to do to mitigate some hazards and still realize some of the savings in the starting year? I've been trying to get an idea of, what are the hazards, what are some possible mitigations, and how much money can be saved by doing it, and I've not gotten any kind of, it's been kind of nebulous.
Yeah, I think along Columbus, at Falcon Ridge, for instance, by Malastrana, we could certainly put in some signs that says speed limit is so much when children are present. A lot of cities do that. I don't know if the city would have to be involved in that, obviously. So there's some, that's one example that Craig gave. That could be a mitigating factor.
Sidewalks are huge too, whether it's from the ballpark addition by the high school, getting a crosswalk and then a sidewalk coming on the south side of 12th Street there, along with also a sidewalk that actually will lead to the school at Ravenstream that goes from the west side of town, Westgate, all the way through to the school there too. We don't have a sidewalk going that way either.
Well, there are some things that we could do for relatively low cost, like say some speed limit signs, but that's depending that speed limit would be approved either by the county or the city, depending upon which entity is involved.
And if a speed limit change was made, would we feel that mitigated the hazard enough that we could start walking there, or is that just one? In that alone, do we think we reduce the risk enough that we could start walking with a speed limit change?
Well, that's where Craig's, we'll be meeting as we put the grant together, meeting with Wold Architect on that because they deal with this all the time. So we'd have to see on that, but I know the sidewalks are a big part of the safety too. So it's not just the speed limit. It'd be getting the money or the grant for that too.
Yeah, and one step that has to take place before we would, make those changes and allow walking, the current transportation policy defines every hazard, and so they would have to be removed from the policy. The board would have to make that decision, so there's be input from the board as well. Any other questions?
I want to clarify what you and I emailed about today.
Yeah, sure.
All of these budget adjustments are right now for 1 year. Is that correct? Or are they in there until we take them out?
Yeah, well, I think some are more permanent, obviously, like the 6.0 classroom FTEs at the elementary, that's all dependent on enrollment.
Right, that'll go up and down as it normally does.
Right. And some of the other ones, we'll be looking, Andy will have to, when we do the next year's budget, we'll have to decide where we're at and whether some of these will be reversed or if they'll stay.
So as we vote today, they would stay, and we would have to vote them back in.
Yep.
One way or the other with the levy this fall.
Yep, and that would be a part of the budget process that we'd approve next June. And I would, line item out the things that we are bringing back, and so
Okay.
you would be aware of what those items are.
Okay.
The only thing I'll say is I can compare this past year, the referendum, where we said we were going to be cutting 2 to 4 million if it didn't pass. So we're going to cut in 3.1. We never gave any specifics. My recommendation to you, I'll be obviously gone, but what would be my strong recommendation, would you need to be very explicit on what would happen if it does not pass for
Yeah.
next year, which we did not have that advantage this past year. It was very vague. We couldn't really say.
And now we've
But
gone through a
obviously,
thorough process.
there's things on the table that we did not cut that
That
would
certainly
have to
would
be
have
cut,
to be.
or, Dan's talking about transportation, obviously, that's a very obvious one, especially if we get rid of some of the hazards would be one that would be top. I don't need to go through them, but, with you right now, but that would be just one example.
For as hard as this process has been, I can't imagine having to do it again. I just want to say thank you for all of the hours that you guys have put in. Oh, my goodness. I'm very impressed.
The last, yeah, Yeah, this is not, this is like the worst thing you could possibly do, because we said where the focus was on, we kept the cuts as much as we could away from student learning, teaching and learning, basically. But you're still impacting programs. You're still impacting people. There are still people getting cut, and so I don't want to say that there hasn't been any type of negative impact on anything. It's just you have to make choices, and that's where we're at with this.
And I think through this process, really, I mean, I know this budget inside and out, and it wasn't a lot of fluff in there. And so I think it really is more of a revenue issue than an expense issue. But that has to be approved by the voters or the state of Minnesota or whoever. But, we do not spend foolishly, and I mean, there's always something you can point to, I'm sure, but, basically it's pretty solid. Other questions or comments?
All right, I would entertain a motion to approve the budget reductions as presented.
So moved.
Second.
And first and second, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. All right, so now we have a resolution to accept a donation from PPG.
EPG, no, PPG. I entertain a motion at this time to consider the donation from PPG.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to consider the following resolution. Whereas the school board may accept a gift valued at $1,000 or more only by adoption of a resolution by 2/3 of its members, and whereas PPG Industries Foundation and its donors wish to donate $1,100 to Falcon Ridge Elementary, now therefore be it resolved that the New Prague Area Board of Education shall accept the donation under no conditions. How do you vote, Karen?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Kim?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Dennis, yes. Item passes 6-0.
All right, next on the agenda, we have a resolution relating to the termination and non-renewal of teaching contract of probationary teachers.
Yes, it's always a sad time at this junction of the school year to release teachers that, for one reason or another, did not make it through the probationary period. And we have a list of 7 teachers that are on that list at this time. And I'll read their names off to you. Lucy Nikolai, Caitlin Parsons, Samantha Kyle, Casey Olson, Robert Mangone, Kyle Krasinski, and Leah Gibbons. Now we will consider the non-renewal teaching of these contracts. It is recommended to the Board of Education that they terminate the non-tenured contract of these 7 probationary teachers. And the resolution reads as follows. Relating to the termination and non-renewal of the teaching contract of these probationary teachers, whereas these probationary teachers of Independent School District 721 be it resolved by the school board of the district that pursuant to the statutes that the teaching contract of these 7 probationary teachers of Independent School District 721 will be hereby terminated at the close of the current 2022-2023 school year. Be it further resolved that a written notice will be sent to each of the teachers regarding termination and non-renewal of their contract. How do you vote on this? Do I have a motion to consider this resolution?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded considering the following resolution. How do you vote on this, Dan?
Aye.
Kim?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Dennis, yes. Item passes 6-0.
Last action item is a resolution for discontinuing and reducing educational positions within the district.
Yes, this is the first step in the ULA process. Right now, we have 1 tenured teacher that we're looking at ULAing at the middle school, and this is the first step of that process. First, you reduce the position And then next time, I don't know if we'll have a special meeting to do this, or it would be very, very quick to place the teacher on ULA, and then we'll look at options for calling her back.
Is there a name that's required at this time? I don't
No
have a
name. We're just dealing with the position. We'll deal with the
Okay.
name in the
Okay,
future.
the position only, name will be supplied when it is
Yep.
determined. All
Yep.
right. I'll entertain a motion at this time to consider the resolution discontinuing and reducing the educational positions.
So move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to consider the following resolution. Be resolved by the School Board of Independent School District 721 that the following programs and positions be discontinued or reduced, set forth below. Elimination of part-time band teacher position at New Prague Middle School, .5 full-time equivalency. How do you vote on this, Dan?
Yay.
Kim?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Dennis? Yes. Item passes 6-0.
All right, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
First and second, those in signify by saying, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
What?
Karen did.
I did.